The Aarushi Talwar case, wherein to this day there is no clear result. Is our justice system really equipped to handle such grey matters where there's no clear black or white?
Since inception, there were a lot of flaws in the investigation. The crime scene was not checked properly, the evidence was not collected properly by the local police station. Thereafter, the investigation was transferred to some specialized investigating agencies. When the specialized investigating agencies came on record, they saw to it that the entire evidence has been wiped off and then there's no scope to now actually trace.
Hello everyone and welcome to Brew and Banter. I'm sure a lot of us love watching crime shows, crime documentaries, crime movies. But what happens in a real life crime scenario? Where does a criminal lawyer really come into the picture, and what happens in a criminal setting behind our country? A lot of us don't know the truth behind that, the real truth. And on today's podcast, we have Madhukar Dalvi, who is a criminal lawyer, and we are going to talk about it all, decode some of the biggest cases that have happened in our country, and talk about our justice system and so much more. Hello and welcome to Brew and Banter. Thank you so much for coming.
Hi Rashi, it's my pleasure that you have invited me for this podcast.
So I actually want to start by talking about a few statistics, right? So roughly more than half of the crimes in our country go unreported. Now there are different statistics for different sort of crimes, right? But let's just say overall, a lot of the crimes in our country go unreported. Now I want to know from your perspective as a criminal lawyer, why does that really happen and what does that say about our justice system really?
So Rashi, there are different types of crimes. There are physical crimes, there are economic offenses, and many other offenses under the Indian Penal Code and the new laws which have now substituted. What happens is that it depends on the magnitude and the nature of the offense that is committed. There are offenses which are committed against women. There are offenses which are committed against children, which are of a very sensitive nature. It's so sensitive that sometimes the victim does not muster the courage of reporting the incident to the police authorities. They do not muster that courage for many reasons. One is the societal pressure.
Right.
Second is maybe they don't get the support, the backing from their family. And third is because of the system maybe. The difficulties which a person may have to face, if at all, he has to set the criminal law in motion and to pursue the legal remedies. So these are some of the reasons why any person would not want to report the commission of a crime. Now there are cases which involve economic crimes, economic offenses. In such scenario, when the stakes are high, that time a person has no other option but to report the matter to the police. But if the stakes are not so high, if the money involved is not so much, then a person thinks that if I actually go to pursue my legal remedy, I will end up spending more time, more money, and more efforts.
Right.
And in return, what am I going to get out of it? So these are some aspects which weigh the mind of a person and maybe dissuade them from pursuing their legal remedies.
Right. So you said there are different sorts of crimes because of which there are different ways that people approach it, right?
Yes.
But there's a very popular line that is said that justice delayed is justice denied.
Absolutely.
Right? So now, why does justice very often get delayed in our country, and why is getting the required result slow sometimes?
Now, from my experience, I would say that the delay that is caused is mainly because of the implementation of the procedures. I won't say that the law is bad or the law is ill equipped to deal with the situation, to deal with the crimes. I would rather say that it's about the mindset of people which need to be changed in order to get expeditious disposal of the cases, which will ensure that justice is served. Now, when I talk about the mindset, it starts from the lowest rung of the system. Whenever now we talk about criminal matters, civil litigation is different. Now, when we talk about a criminal case, the case starts at the police station where an FIR is registered. Then the investigation happens. Upon completion of the investigation, the charge sheet is filed in the court. And upon filing of the charge sheet, the trial starts. Unfortunately, today, this entire process takes a lot of time. It's difficult to get an FIR registered sometimes. When a person goes to the cops and he reports an incident, the police sometimes they do not take prompt action and they don't register an offense, as a result of which the person has to go to the court, file a private complaint, or go to the high court, invoke the writ jurisdiction of the high court. Now, again, all this process takes time. Now, when it takes time, the investigating measures are also frustrated.
Right.
Collection of evidence get hampered, and this delay ultimately is beneficial to the wrongdoers, who then later eventually escape the clutches of law.
Correct.
So I would say it's the implementation. If people take it seriously, if these officers who are public servants, if they try to take expeditious steps in performance of their duties, then perhaps there won't be any problem. When the matter goes to the court, we have seen cases which linger on for decades. I started my practice in the year 2004. In 2004, 2005, there are some cases in which charge sheets have been filed,
Okay.
and we are in 2025, and the charges have also not been framed in those cases.
Oh my God.
So you can imagine
Right.
when the charges will be framed, when the trial will start, when the evidence will be led, when the witnesses will be summoned and examined in the court. It may take another decade. By the time the accused, whether they are there or they may not be there.
Right. So you think somewhere it's not the justice system, but the people involved because of which it gets delayed.
Absolutely. I feel if the mindset is changed, if people take things seriously, if technology has gone to such an extent that a lot of things can be expeditiously done. If it is implemented in the right way in our judicial system, in the courts, accountability needs to be increased.
Right.
Accountability of the judicial officers, accountability of the lawyers, all these things needs to be reformed, and then only we can expect some betterment in the system and in the dispensation of the justice.
Correct. Now, you kind of gave the audience a little bit of a brief on pretty much the basics, right? But I also want to go ahead and talk about some of the major cases that have happened because there's too much information, right? Sometimes there's too much information and most of it is actually not factual. It is not correct. And people need to know the right kind of information about our law system, about the cases that happen, and so much more. So, first, let's start from a case, a very big, high profile case that happened that you think did not get the result that it should have gotten.
Recently, we have witnessed this case, the 7/11 bomb blast case, where these people were arrested, they were accused, they were charge sheeted, the trial went on, and finally, the trial court convicted all the accused. Some of them were sentenced to life imprisonment, some of them were sentenced to death. They went in appeal in the Honorable High Court, and the Honorable High Court set aside their convictions and they all were acquitted. Now, this is very discouraging. It's very alarming. Of course, I cannot comment on the judgment of this matter. Of course, the judges might have, in their own wisdom, applied their mind to the facts, to the evidence that was led in the court. And based on that, the courts might have passed the judgment. But what is the kind of an example that it sets in the society? It's such a drastic incident that had taken place. So many people lost their lives, and so many people, their family members, their kith and kin, were pursuing this matter and were hoping that they will get justice, the wrongdoers would be punished. But then it's quite an unfortunate scenario that they all have been acquitted by the Honorable High Court. And now the CBI has filed a SLP in the Supreme Court. Supreme Court has stayed the implementation of that judgment. But let's see what the outcome could be in the Supreme Court. But that is one case where I felt the outcome or the conclusion ought to have been something which would serve and set an example to the society and even instill the faith of people and general public in justice.
Right. And again, another very high profile case that happened a few years ago that shook the entire nation was the Sheena Bora case that happened a few years ago, right? Now, there's something also, and I wanted to explain this. There is something which is called the crime of passion, and I wanted to sort of talk about a little bit about what that is and whether you think this was a crime of passion or a crime of calculation. So, what is the difference between the two, and what you think this case represented?
Crime of passion and crime of calculation. It's a nice way to put, I would say. Crime of calculation, normally a person thinks in terms of what would be in his interest and how he could commit an offense and get away with it. It's a lot of calculation, a lot of thinking, a lot of introspection involved in it. Whereas crime of passion is something which can happen in a fit of rage, in the heat of passion. It can happen on account of obsession, it can happen on account of frustration and different types of feelings that one might entertain in his mind. It's a lot of criminal psychology also involved in such aspects, especially when there is a crime of passion. Sheena Bora case, murder case, is one of the most high profile cases. Of course, it's right now, the trial is still going on, so it's not fair on my part to pass any comments on that because it's a matter sub judice. But nevertheless, it got a lot of media attention, and I believe it's more about circumstantial evidence. And let's see how the courts perceive this matter and appreciate the evidence that has been brought on record, which would lead towards a proper and a just decision.
Right. And in cases like these where there's so much media pressure, and we have a lot of high profile criminal cases where there is immense pressure from the media, immense coverage by the media, do you think because of that, the result might change, or because of that, incessant pressure, the result might go the other way, or there might be sort of like a pressure to give a result early in order to just close the case?
Actually, the police, the judicial officers, the lawyers should not come under any such influence or under any such media publicity pressures. They should be very fair in their job. But unfortunately, we often see that these people do come under some media pressure. And a lot of these cases which get media glare and hype, often the results and the outcome of the cases sometimes may not be fair. in the right way.
Correct.
That's a very disturbing aspect and factor.
Yeah.
But irrespective of the kind of glare, the kind of hype, and the kind of publicity a case may get, as a judge, as a lawyer, or as a police officer, they just need to be firm and fair in uncovering the crime and getting the best possible evidence on the record.
Yeah. And somewhere, do you think that wealth or money can play a part in our justice system where justice may get delayed when money or wealth might come into the picture?
Again, yes, it does. It does impact the system. And it's like we often see situations where sometimes extraordinary reliefs are granted to extraordinary people. Unfortunately, normal people don't get that extraordinary reliefs from the court.
Yeah.
We have encountered such situations. We have seen lot of cases, lot of instances where the courts have been generous in exercising their discretion in favor of certain litigants, certain parties who are influential and who can engage the best of the lawyers. And yes, they can walk away with some great orders and reliefs.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
It's
but that
unfortunate.
does happen sometimes.
It's unfortunate but true. It does happen.
Right. And again, coming to another very big case that shook our nation, wherein there was actually no clear result, was the Aarushi Talwar case, wherein to this day, there is no clear result. Is our justice system really equipped to handle such grey matters where there's no clear black or white?
So the case that you referred, it is right now like an unsolved mystery
Right.
where the accused were initially convicted and then they appealed, and in the high court their convictions were set aside and they were all acquitted. Now in such case, why were they acquitted? Were they acquitted because they have not committed an offense, or were they acquitted because the evidence was not convincing enough to convict the accused and sentence them to either life or death, which are the two punishments prescribed for the offense of murder? In this case, perhaps it is the lack of evidence, the uncertainties, the suspicions, the lacunas in the investigation, and the evidence which was adduced in the court of law, which created this doubts, conjectures, and surmises, which eventually the courts give the benefit of doubt to the accused. So this is one such case where, since inception, there were a lot of flaws in the investigation. The crime scene was not checked properly. The evidence was not collected properly by the local police station. Thereafter, the investigation was transferred to some specialized investigating agencies. When the specialized investigating agencies came on record, they saw to it that the entire evidence has been wiped off and then there's no scope to now actually trace. Then what do? Then the entire case is based on circumstances, what we say circumstantial evidence, secondary evidence, and then it becomes very difficult to prove the circumstances, the chain of circumstances which leads towards the final conclusion of a guilt towards the hilt. So these are the issues which normally make it difficult
Correct.
for leading a conviction in a matter.
So, how do you think this can actually be changed? So, in such matters where maybe, as you said, since inception, the work wasn't done properly, right? So, first, I want you to tell the audience where was the first step wherein the system or the procedures went wrong, and then, if at all such cases happen in the future, what is the best way to avoid this kind of a thing from happening again?
In the police department, there are various designations starting from the constables, the PSI, the PI, senior PI, ACP, DCP level officers.
Correct.
Those at the higher levels are well equipped. They know, they're intelligent, they're knowledgeable, and they know what to do in a particular manner. But those who are at the lower level may not be as intelligent, as experienced, as knowledgeable when it comes to the methods of investigation.
Of course. Correct.
But unfortunately, when the case starts, it first comes in the hands of the lower level officers, and then it gets supervised at the higher levels. So the lower level officers are at times not competent to take the right steps at the right time, because time is very essential and very crucial in such matters. And if certain things are not done at that right point of time, then the entire case gets frustrated. Then, no matter what steps you take in the future, if your foundation itself is weak, then there are lawyers who are there to plug the flaws and the loopholes during the time of the trial.
Correct.
Then, another aspect which normally we face is from the time of registration of the FIR and till the time of the conviction, the final judgment is passed. How much time spent goes in that? It may take 10 years, it may take 15 years. After 15 years, the judge who delivers the judgment will be the 10th judge sitting on the case.
Correct.
Before that, there must have been so many judges.
Yes.
A judge who must have taken cognizance at the time of filing of the charge sheet, a judge who might have framed the charges, a judge who might have recorded the evidence, and then the judge who will pass the final judgment. So there is no consistency. The judge who is going to pass the judgment has not recorded the evidence. He has not seen the witnesses. He has not seen the demeanor of the witnesses.
Correct.
So he has to just go by whatever is there on the record.
Yes.
And then he decides on the judgment. So these are again the difficulties that we face because of these delays.
And we spoke a little bit about some high profile crimes and obviously a background on the system and the procedures. But I'm very sure, and this is a fact, that the nature of crimes has changed over the last few decades. Certain crimes must have increased, certain crimes must have decreased. Also because of technology, I'm pretty sure that there are newer forms of crime,
Yes.
right? So from the time that you started your practice to now, the last couple of years, the last decade, how have the nature of crimes really changed in our country and what has really increased today?
So basically, I started my practice in 2004. And I was always fascinated with criminal practice because I used to watch a lot of these crime thrillers and these mafias and all, and I was quite fascinated with all that. So there was a time when crime was committed with the use of might. So you had all these gangsters, and there were cases of murders, kidnapping, extortions, dacoities, robberies. Thereafter, there emerged corporate offenses where people started using their mind to commit a crime. And that's when we saw a huge transformation, and these white collar crimes, economic offenses
Correct.
were on a rise. Share market frauds, bank scams, all these cases were on a rise. So that transformation we saw and we witnessed in the 90s, in the mid 90s. Thereafter, with the advent of technology, the cyber crimes, they came on a rise. And today we see that there are so many such cyber related scams which are happening day in and day out. We come across this digital arrest, which was something which was completely unheard of. You can imagine how a person can get conned. It's like you are hypnotizing a person.
Yes.
A random person will call you on the phone and tell you that you are involved in some big crime, big scam, and we are from CBI, and thereafter they will make you to come on a video call.
Yes.
So we are seeing these instances of how these online scams and online frauds are happening at a very rampant pace.
Yes. So as you said, right, digital scams, they are rampant. And sometimes even people who are very well educated fall for it. How can people who may not know too much about it avoid falling for these digital scams?
So basically, people need to be aware about such scams at the first instance. There has to be some programs where people should be educated. Like, how many people today are reading the newspapers today and following the news channels? And there was one case where this scammer represented himself as a Hollywood star,
Oh my God.
and he went on to influence a person to such an extent that that person actually felt that he or she is actually dealing with a famous personality, and that's how that person induced this victim to part away with her money.
Oh my God. Okay.
So we come across such instances. Now, these people who are actually indulging into this, you can imagine how educated they are,
Yeah.
how experienced they are,
Of course.
how they can actually lure you into believing
Yeah.
into the existence of certain things which are all fake and false. But still, a person falls in the trap. And once he's fallen in the trap, he succumbs to all these.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but
Yes.
it happens
Correct.
today.
It can happen to you, it can happen to me also.
We need to be a little more aware.
We have to be very aware about it.
Yeah.
Keep ourselves updated with all these events that are happening.
Of course. Yeah. And also, whenever a person comes to you, asking you to fight their case, can you tell somewhere if they are lying, or then if the person, who they filed the case against, the other person is lying? Are there certain signs that tell you that a particular person is lying in a crime scenario?
So, as a lawyer, we often come across situations where a client will come to us and give us instructions and also tell us about certain facts and the role that he has played. And later, at some juncture, at some point of time, we realize that what our client has told us is not correct. And the opposite party
Is true.
is correct, is true.
Yeah.
It's a very tricky situation where, on one hand, you need to take a call or you need to decide whether you are going to support the truth, or you're going to be very protective with your client and with regard to the interest of your client.
Yeah.
It's a very tricky situation for us to to draw that line and to maintain that kind of a balance between our responsibility and our duty towards the client, and also our moral responsibility
Yeah.
towards society,
Correct. And to the law.
towards justice.
Yeah. And, somewhere again talking about the justice system, do you from personal experience feel that there is a part of our system that can be flawed to a certain extent?
No, I don't see any flaws in our procedures, in our laws, and in our system. As I told you before, also, when you asked me the first question,
Yeah.
my grievance is against the people who are empowered to actually deliver their deliver justice. My grievance is against them. My grievance is against how timely actions are not taken. Like, there are trials which have spanned for 15 years, 10, 15 years. But if you actually see the proceedings, then the entire trial could have been concluded within a span of 2 years.
Okay.
Now, why this delay? This delay is caused because of the attitude, purely because of the attitude of adjourning the matters, adjourning the matters beyond a month, 2 months, and then the pendency of the cases. The pendency of the cases is so much that to an extent, then you can't even blame the judges for that.
Correct, yes.
Because every day, if you go to the court, they have to, their regular daily board will have around 150 to 200 matters. I'm talking about the lower courts.
Okay.
Even in the high court also, if you see the board, there are about 80, 100 matters listed every day on the board.
Yeah.
So it becomes very difficult for the judges also to deal with such backlog of cases.
Yeah. Yes. And again, coming to, let's just talk a little bit about a criminal lawyer's life, really, right? Because people may not have too much information on how they work, their functioning is, etc., etc. There is a show called Delhi Crime, which is a very popular show. Now, in that show, they're talking about a case from the viewpoint of a police officer, the psychological strain that they go through, and whatever they face. In such scenarios, what is a psychological strain that a lawyer faces?
Indeed, we have to live in a lot of stress and there is a lot of pressure involved in our work. We have clients who are either behind the bars or those who are outside the bars. Those who are inside the bars, we have to get them out. And those who are outside the bars, we need to ensure that they don't go inside the bars. So the work stress and the strain is quite high. Stakes are very high because directly the liberty of a citizen is at stake, and the conditions in the jail are absolutely not fine for any person to even think and imagine of spending time over there.
Yeah. And as you also mentioned, right, your some of your clients who have unfortunately, for whatever reasons, have had to go to jail have told you that the circumstances are extremely bad. What have they really described the scenario like?
So basically, the conditions over there, the hygiene, there are barracks. In one barrack, which has a capacity of say about 70 or 80 inmates, there are about 200 to 50 people who are stuffed into those barracks. Then the kind of food, the toilets, and they don't get bed sheets to sleep. They have to sleep on the floor, in the dampness. So all these all these conditions make it very, very difficult for any person who has been accustomed to a decent way of life to manage to stay in those conditions. Fortunately, now because of the technology and all, people are getting updated in the jail about the status of their case. They can today have telephonic calls from the jail with their family members and with their lawyers. A lawyer can take instructions on phone today. There are these facilities which have been now implemented
Correct.
which helps them to get connected with their lawyer, with their family, and also have an update about the case. But earlier, when these facilities were not there, a person who gets arrested and who is lodged in the jail, he has no idea about what is happening in his matter. There was one client who was involved in an economic offense, and he was arrested, and by the time I bailed him out, he was in custody, he was in judicial custody in Arthur Road jail for about 60 days. When he came out, he came to meet me and he said that had it been delayed by another few days, I was actually seriously contemplating of ending my life.
Oh my God.
What was the need for me to commit this crime, to get involved into this financial transaction? I have enough money for me to survive, for my children to survive, for my grandchildren to survive.
Yes.
Why is the need for me to get involved in this messy situation which landed me in this prison and I had to spend 60 days in jail? So that was something which I also understood. Why do, because you asked me a question, why do people commit a crime? People commit a crime sometimes because people want to rise. People want to fulfill their ambitions, fulfill their aspirations in life. And sometimes going in the right way, in the right direction with honest, truthful means will not get them over there. And that is when they try to adopt this shortcut methods,
Yes.
the wrong ways
To get there.
to get there. But then when you get there, you become used to a particular lifestyle. You start living in a lavish apartment, you start driving a luxury car, and then later, when your work or your business is not doing good enough to support that lifestyle,
Correct.
that is when you think of doing some scams only to sustain your life.
Yes, right. And also, on a personal front, what do you think was the worst case that really shook you?
The Nirbhaya case.
Yeah.
That was one of the most brutal incident. As a criminal lawyer, it's been 25 years that I've been practicing. As a lawyer, I am supposed to take all types of cases. I have done a lot of murder cases. I have done a lot of economic frauds. I have been on the panel of the Union of India as a special public prosecutor for the anti-terrorist ward. So I have had diverse experience on all sides.
Yeah.
But as a person, I hate crimes against women and against children. That is something that I cannot tolerate. So I never took up a case of a rapist, of an alleged rapist, where I have reasons to believe that this person has committed this wrong.
Yeah.
I would not take that case. Now, there have been cases where there are consensual relationships which do not work out, and as an offshoot of that breakup, some charges are leveled against some people. Those type of cases, fine, I can distinguish and I can contest. But crime against women and against children, brutal crimes against women and children are something which are completely against my conscience. And I feel personally that capital punishment should be awarded in such cases.
Okay.
Nirbhaya case was something which was very disturbing, and it was a case which shook the conscience of people of the nation, and it also led towards implementation of certain laws, certain guidelines in investigation. Investigating officers were made accountable. Today, if any woman goes and reports an incident of any wrong, say a case of molestation or a case of outraging the modesty, the police have been directed to promptly act on the complaint. So these are a lot of changes which came in the system. There were a lot of amendments made in the provisions of various laws like the IPC, the CRPC, only to ensure that such cases are dealt in the best effective and efficient possible manner, and there is no scope left for the accused to go scot free by committing such heinous crimes.
You spoke about capital punishments, right? For the audience that may not know what that means, can you give a brief background in very simple language on what that really means?
Capital punishment is death sentence.
Okay.
So it was a subject of debate and a lot of there have been a lot of discussion on this. We have capital punishment today for certain horrific offenses
Yeah.
like murder. There are there is a capital punishment which is prescribed for it, and there have been debates where they say that it should not be it should be eradicated or capital punishments are not justifiable. But I feel that there are certain serious offenses which do deserve this capital punishment. It has to be there, and it can be like a deterrent for people not to commit a heinous crime.
Right. Do you personally think that there are certain cases that happen in our country where no capital punishment should be there, but it is not yet present?
Now, with regard to awarding a capital punishment, there is a criteria basically. Capital punishment is to be awarded in the rarest of the rare cases. So we have come across several cases where the trial court has awarded a capital punishment. When this capital punishment is awarded, that is a death sentence. In India, we have death by hanging. So, whenever this capital punishment is awarded by the trial court, only the sessions court has the power to award a capital punishment. Magistrates have no power to do that. So, when a sessions court awards a capital punishment, that sentence needs to be confirmed by the Honorable High Court. So, there is a confirmation proceeding which happens in the Honorable High Court, where the High Court examines the entire record of the case, the entire evidence of the case, and sees whether the trial court, the subordinate court, was justified in awarding this capital punishment, whether this case falls under the category of rarest of the rare cases which deserves to be awarded a capital punishment. And then when the High Court confirms the death sentence, then the accused has a remedy to challenge that in the Supreme Court, and then they can also apply for mercy before the president. So all this process needs to be followed.
And now, pretty much summarizing everything, and also from your experience of working as a criminal lawyer, on a personal front, what is something that you've learned that has really stayed with you that you also think can benefit the audience?
So basically, there are certain philosophies or certain principles that I have implemented in my life, which I have learned from my professional experience.
Yeah.
One is give your best, but be prepared for the worst. Second is earn well, spend less. So these are certain things that I have learned. Another thing is be very cautious in life. See, life is very smooth, life is very beautiful, but sometimes if you go the wrong way, life can be very difficult. Life can be very, very rough.
Correct.
So, as far as possible, try to play safe and do not do any such thing that can land you in trouble.
Yes.
We often try to chase our ambitions. Our wants are unlimited. We try to chase, we try to go fast in our approach, and in doing so, sometimes you may just do the wrong thing. And that one wrong thing, that one wrong mistake
Yeah.
can destroy your entire life. So be steady and always be on the right side.
Yeah. I personally got so much information about the world of criminal law. You know, we decoded so many major cases as well, spoke about the result, what should have happened, what shouldn't have happened. And I personally learned a lot, and I'm sure the audience has too. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks to you for giving me this lovely opportunity to express myself and to share my experiences. I hope you and the audience
Definitely.
would enjoy this.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for coming.